We're now going to move to another function that we call agency. And agency is about patterns of action. And of course, actions are manifest in an event. And an event is a setting in which something happens. These patterns of happening we call transactivity and predication. Agency also involves actors in the form of persons or things. Here we differentiate the roles actors can take. And there are different patterns of conditionality, whether the event definitely is happening or has happened, and it is must or just or might be. Now let's look at the patterns of predication and transactivity in events. In text, sentences have subjects followed by predicates, also sometimes called theme and reme, or given and new. The girl threw the ball. The girl is the subject setting up the theme or the given in the sentence. Then, threw the ball is the predicate or the reme, or the new information that we add to the given. We must know who the girl is already. Then the fact that she threw the ball is the new information that the sentence is designed to convey. How does this pattern of meaning work in image? Let me show you now an image and talk about the parallels with text. Here is a painting by J.M.W. Turner, hanging in the National Gallery of London and painted in 1844. It's titled, and this matters, Rain, Steam and Speed, the Great Western Railway. The Great Western Railway had only been opened a few years before. Now let me turn this image into writing so I can talk about the way in which text can mean the same thing but also quite differently. The train is crossing the bridge and the sun is coming through the clouds. Soon the train will be gone and the storm will have passed. So the subjects, we have the train, the clouds. The predicates, we have is crossing the bridge and will be gone. These are the two simultaneous events that Turner has put together in this painting, the train and the storm. How does the image represent predication? The focal point of the image is the train. This is what, in terms of visual design, is often called the figure. The ground is the setting that gives meaning to this particular image of the train. It is crossing the bridge. And now transactivity in the sentence. We have an action structure where the train, in the nominative case, is crossing, in the active voice, the bridge in the accusative case. In the image, we have a volume, the train moving along a vector. The railway line coming from a vanishing point in the image, we are assuming is moving along and past the position of the artist and us as the viewer. We can be confident from this vector that the train is not going to run over the artist Turner or us, the viewer. But there is a profound difference between image and text. Text unfolds in time, and image is arrayed in space. In an image, the entities are volumes: the locomotive, the train behind it, the rail line, the bridge, the cloudy sky, the sun beginning to come out from behind the clouds. And if you look carefully as well, there is a group of people boating on the river, slowly some might presume. A farmer is ploughing his field, possibly also slowly, and a rabbit is scurrying away fast enough not to be hit by the train. This extra information could clutter our text and distract from the main point, which is the passing train. Image does space in a great deal of detail. It also asks the viewer to pick out the figure from the ground, while at the same time providing them a whole lot of more spatial detail if they care to linger and ponder on the deeper meanings of the picture. But time is less obvious. Who knows whether the train might not be stopped because it has broken down, or whether the storm might get worse rather than blow away. Text, on the other hand, cannot have the same degree of spatial detail without distracting from its message. But it can be much more clearer about time. This is for the simple reason that words follow word. You write and read a sentence across time. Where image, in its very mechanics, prioritizes spatiality, text prioritizes temporality. Text is linear, image is simultaneous. Both can express meanings in time and space, But each is better at some of these jobs than the other. The meanings about the train are the same, but text and image do them differently. So to say this in the terms we want to use in this grammar, both text and image can represent structures of predication, but their affordances are different. This is why artists give titles to their work, or curators write descriptions of artwork for the signs on the gallery, or art historians write books. The image itself is not always enough. And finally, to broaden our reading of this image and text, considering now the train as an object in space. Turner must have been impressed by trains as objects speeding across the landscape, and by the Great Western Railway as a marvel of modernity. This must have been why he decided to transfer the vivid experience of travelling on a train at speed into an image, transposing the three-dimensionality of speeding across space into the two-dimensionality of the canvas. Meaning is a traffic across these different forms. Predication happens in all. In the case of Turner's painting, the transposition was from space and object to image. But for the great engineer Isambard Kingdom Brunel, the transposition was the other way around. The locomotive and the bridge had been built upon his plans. A transposition had been in the other direction, from image to object to space.
Now I'm going to look at the other aspect of the structure event, which we call transactivity. The example that I'm going to use is from the Jacques Tati film Mon Oncle. This is a film of very few words, but a lot of embodied movement in space and interaction with objects. A very fancy lady pulls up at the door of a very fancy house, and she rings the bell. The pretentious lady of the house switches on the fish fountain first before pressing the button to open the gate. How very modern for 1958, that's what Jacques Tati seems to be saying here. You can see this is a very particularly nuanced structure of event with the interaction of space and object and embodied meaning in the demeanour of the visitor and the host. Now, for the same frame of objects and space, the husband comes home from his day at work. He's the boss of a plastic hose factory. He waits while his wife gets to put on the fountain first. It's a visitor, she thinks, I suppose, before pressing the switch in order for the husband to get in the gate. This was silly, of course, because there was no need to put the fish fountain on for him. In text, we have a relatively limited range of resources for expressing what we call transactivity. These include voice, like active and passive voice, and possibly other permutations of this. We have case, nominative, accusative, and others. We have transitivity, which is whether something's transitive, intransitive, and we have other possible things in speech as well, but it's a limited range. In moving into image, we can capture much more nuanced meanings, and let's see another version now of coming through this gate. Gerard is the son of the husband and wife we've just been looking at, and his uncle is in fact played by director Jacques Tati, is now bringing him home from school. The same routine, the same opening the gate and the same objects, the fish fountain. So the wife, or the mother, presses the doorbell and she instinctively turns on the fountain. And the uncle takes fright at the fish and the horrifying modernity of it all, and he scurries back to his house, which is in comfortingly grubby old Paris. So the basic structures of transactivity in these three episodes are the same. There is a multimodal transpositions between bodies, objects, and spaces, but they are never simply repetitions. From event to event, transactivity captures both their commonalities, but also, very importantly, their differences. It is the nuanced differences that make this movie funny. Cinema is particularly good at these forms of transactivity. This is how we can see what Tati is trying to say as a film director. Architects should also consider this range of differences when they design their buildings. If they are to create houses that have for different kinds of people and where different kinds of people feel comfortable. So our point is this: we might be able to parse these different processes of transactivity as a kind of traffic across these different forms of meaning, and then represent them multimodally, perhaps in cinema or perhaps in architecture.